The Autopen controversy with Joe Biden. For anyone who, and I don't really understand this thinking because I believe that we, for example, here spend a lot of time on the Trump agenda and what's going on day in and day out. We talk about immigration pretty much every day, the big, beautiful bill pretty much every day, Trump economy constantly, right? So, and then also overseas negotiations to end the Russia-Ukraine war and support for Israel in the war against Hamas, right? We're the things Trump is doing, we're looking at. It's not a whataboutism feeling right now where we're looking at we're looking at the Biden administration saying, well, look what they did. Look what they did. No, but there are some aspects of this that need to be looked at because there's still a live issue, if you will. I mean, one of them is given that we now have more knowledge than ever, or I should say, further proof. We didn't need it. We already knew. But we have further proof than we ever have had before that Joe Biden was not of sound mind when he was president. Certainly for 2 or 3 of the 4 years. And I think you could argue for the whole thing. I thought the whole thing. In fact, I got wrong who the Democrat nominee would be when I was doing my solo Buck Sexton show in 2019 because my assumption was it can't be Biden. That guy's got scrambled eggs for brains. That everyone knows that. It didn't seem possible to me. It didn't seem plausible that they would be able to mobilize the Democrats around somebody that so clearly had dementia and was so visibly frail and too old for the job. That it came back to bite them, but they did manage to pull it off in 2020, to my surprise. Well, now they all admit, of course, that it was a scam, it was a sham, it was a lie. Joe Biden didn't know what was going on, and behind closed doors, there were people who were doing more than they certainly should have been doing, and perhaps more than they lawfully had a right to do in the name of the president, which is a big deal. You're not allowed to have people pretending to be the president. Look, there's a vice president, there's a chain of succession, and there's the 25th Amendment, but Democrats just wanted to cling on to power as it was and not have to face the reality of what they had done and the fraud that they had perpetrated against the American people. So they got all deep into this, right? What a tangled web we weave. And here is another aspect of it. Well, actually, let me do this. We had Mr. Peter Doocy. Peter Doocy was talking about the Biden pardon signatures. I wanted to get into the pardons here because if a president has the power, as we believe he does, to just pardon anyone he chooses to, it is then absolutely essential that we are sure that it is the president who is making that decision. The power of pardon cannot be something that is in the hands of other officials. So if a president does not know, for example, and has not made the decision to pardon someone, that person cannot be considered to have been pardoned. Over at Fox News, Peter Doocy spoke about this and asked President Trump about the Autopen signatures on some of these pardons. This is cut one. Play it.
When you look at these last-minute Biden pardons, the big ones, Biden siblings, Fauci, January 6th committee.
That's right.
Most of the big ones have the same very neat signature. We would expect that probably to be the Autopen. There is one that looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there. Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the Autopen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the Autopen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
Remember, if you want to know what Trump thinks about this, he has been very clear. He says with the this is so Trump, man. He's the best. Politics is not gonna be as interesting when Trump is not president or about to be president. I'm warning you all now. I want to get you ready for this. We're still gonna have great shows. Unfortunately, we got Trump for 4 years here, so we got a while. But it's even if we have a good Republican administration going forward, we are never going to have as engrossing and entertaining a Republican president as Donald Trump. You know it, and I know it. It's obvious. Okay, this guy is okay. Here it is. On Truth Social, he writes, with the exception of the rigged presidential election of 2020, the Autopen is the biggest political scandal in American history. Okay, that was I think that was earlier today, actually, or it was recent. Whatever, it was clear. It was recently put out on Truth Social, and all caps, of course. In case you wanted to know whether he thinks this is an all cap situation, oh, it is biggest political scandal in American history. Now, I think that the Biden cover up and the dementia hiding was the biggest scandal. I would agree with that. The Autopen, that remains to be seen whether or not Biden knew. Now, this is tough. How would you prove whether he knew or not? And then you also get to the same way you could have somebody who is not fit to stand trial because they are not of sound mind, right? It's a very high bar, by the way. It's pleading insanity is, from my understanding, if you're on a defense team, is one of the hardest. You guys got to be really crazy, as in not able to know right from wrong level of crazy. But if somebody has really severe senility, and let's remember, there was the investigation of Biden's handling of the classified documents, which the investigator, the head investigator, was a federal prosecutor, said, well, we can't think anyone's going to prosecute this guy because he'll just come across as a forgetful and kindly old man who clearly doesn't remember stuff, which is a polite way of saying not really of sound mind to stand trial, not really of the ability to be able to answer questions and even be held accountable for what he has done here. Well, if that is true, and we know that they accepted that as true at the time because it was essentially treated as exculpatory for Biden. They just said, oh, yeah, see, no problem with the classified stuff that Biden has because he's just sort of too old and confused and, move along, people, move along. Well, if he's too old and confused to be held accountable for the mishandling of classified information, how can he be in a position intellectually to know who he is pardoning and whether or not this person is someone that he actually wishes to use that incredibly broad power that only presidents have of pardon? Now you start to see, hold on, this could be an issue. It's not only did Biden know, it's when Biden supposedly knew, was he even capable of being in a mental state where knowing for him was possible? I don't know. It's not an easy question to answer. And that raises some issues because, who are some of the people who got pardoned? Dr. Fauci in the waning hours of the Biden administration. You could just imagine little Fauci calling in to one of his masked henchmen, actually, preferably double masked, in the Oval Office and making sure that there is a pardon for him so that whatever shenanigans in the name of mitigation he engaged in with the tyranny of the COVID madness, he would not be held responsible. Fauci got a full and unconditional pardon from Biden. Biden's family got a full and unconditional pardon from Biden, which, remember, didn't even cover named conduct. Biden didn't even feel the need to say, for the following, for the following reasons or the following things or the following areas of conduct, anything done, we are to believe, is now outside, at least in federal law, outside the realm of federal law, to take accountability against any of Biden's individuals. The Biden crime family was a real thing. As we know, it was all graft. It was all corruption, payoffs, bribes, Hunter's paintings. Do you think Hunter's paintings are selling for $500,000 a painting anymore? What happened? He just lost his muse? No more the creative genius that he had been? We saw the same thing with the Clintons. I thought the Clintons were running a global charity. Where did all that charitable money go? Well, as soon as Hillary lost the election, the Clinton Global Initiative collapses. No one wants to give them money. That's so strange. Because now the Clintons could have been in a position to devote even more of their energy and time to the causes that they pretended to care about, to create a massive slush fund so they could fly private and engage in massive corruption in plain sight, right? So we've seen this play out before. Do I think it is likely that any of these pardons will be overturned officially? Probably not. Probably not. And it's not because they shouldn't be. I believe it is the challenges to get to the level of proof needed to show that Biden did not know and that somebody else. But maybe they get to that level of proof. I don't know. It is possible. But what a mess of a White House. And honestly, what a tragedy the whole thing was. 4 years of damage done to American institutions, and none more so, really, than the presidency itself. If Democrats could all look at each other and look at us and lie about the baseline capability of a human being to do the job of President of the United States, they are capable of doing the same thing and lying in the most obvious and blatant way about anything, as long as it keeps them in power. The only limit to what they will lie about is this effective for keeping us in power? If the answer is yes, they will do it. And that is a sad place for the country to be. And it is the reason that so many have lost faith in the Democrat Party, including Democrats, because they have no principles that they stand for. There are some who just want the raw exercise of power. There are some who just want the street rabble to gather around them and let them get away with what they want. Fine. Plenty of Democrats fall into that category. But for any of them who believe that there was something bigger, something more important that the DNC and the Democrats calling the shots truly believe in, I think they have been disabused of that notion. All right, outside of Pure Talk's company headquarters, one of the first things you'll see is American flag. So it's no surprise that a company run by a U.S. military veteran is choosing to thank 1,000 of our veterans for their service with a gift of their own American flag. This version of our flag is made right here in America by Allegiance Flag. Pure Talk's team believes every service member who has faithfully served this country deserves to proudly fly an American flag, one that's made here in America. And you can participate too. Just switch your cell phone service to Pure Talk this month, and a portion of your monthly rate will go to provide these high-quality flags to deserving veterans. With plans from just $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data, you can enjoy America's most dependable 5G network while cutting your cell phone bill in half. The average family saves over $1,000 a year. Just dial pound 250, say the keywords Clay and Bach. Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team will get you switched hassle-free in as little as 10 minutes. Dial pound 250, say Clay and Bach to support veterans, and switch to America's wireless company, Pure Talk.